Basically, I was really, really clear that the situation in Aotearoa, and a lot of the attitudes and perceptions were based on misconceptions and misunderstandings or a lack of knowledge about truth in this country, and the truth had always only been told from one perspective. So it was really important to bring a dual perspective to that and to educate communities. And as a school, you have a powerful influence over leadership in the future. So I wanted every kid at Newton Central School to learn the truth, particularly around identity and identity as a bicultural community, so that people were understanding that, you know, if you place an emphasis on Maori identity and you're in a school community where you've got 21 ethnicities like Newton does, the way that you get people to understand diversity or biculturalism is by exploring dual diversities and identities. And so, you know, through the bicultural histories, it was okay. What is the story of us who are here in Aotearoa right now? What is the story from the beginning to now? And so that we could actually teach that specifically, and because I didn't want our future in this country to be based on those mistruths and misconceptions. And to do that, I think the climate that we had at Newton was we had established through the process of change and innovation that we'd gone through, got a community on board to be a community of learners, so that it wasn't just restricted to the children learning, it was the teachers learning, it was the management learning, it was the board learning, and it was the parents learning through the process we went through. And in terms of, you know, alongside the bicultural histories was the development of the Marae Noho program. And so as part of that, educating the parents about the truths. And the response from parents is, God, I just didn't know. And that's the bottom line, really. If people aren't challenged or offered another view on something, they will stick with what they believe through thick and thin. And it's not because it's not because they're dogmatic, or it's just that if you've always thought that red was white and someone all of a sudden says no, that's white. I mean, it's not red, it's white. It's red. It's not white, it's red. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, and all of a sudden you go through this double take, and it goes like, oh, I've always thought this. I just never ever thought that, because that's how it's always been. And, you know, the education system in itself has perpetuated a lot of that mistruth. And as an education system, we have an obligation to right that injustice. And so that we have an amazing country in the future. So it's all about looking at the future and seeing, you know, the kids, all of the kids, regardless of who they are or where they're from, or, you know, going out in the future and being advocates for social justice. And that's what that curriculum does. It empowers people with knowledge. It empowers people with the celebration of their identity, their language, their culture, their history, their whakapapa. And it's not just about Maori, it is about all of us who make up this diverse land, this whenua that is Aotearoa today, and what it will be in the future. It's like many things in education. There are policy statements, and what that looks like in practice is really different. You know, so it's kind of, everybody looks at a document and sees it from different perspectives, and they bring their own self into that. And often it's, again, if you don't have background knowledge to what it is that you're teaching, how effectively can you teach it? So the development of the whole program was around a learning community, so that teachers were also learners. And I guess it's taking the concept of ako, which is around, you know, one of the key concepts in kahikitea, key concepts of tatai ako, those things were about critical reflection, critical understanding, stepping outside of knowledge that's known, and enabling children to have that too. And it was really interesting because I was, when Tam gave me the documents to have a look at and give some feedback on, and I had it at this place, and a teacher who was there said, "Oh, that looks really complex for a 5-year-old. I don't think they'd be able to do it." And I said, "Oh, you're actually incorrect there. We've been doing it at Newton for many years now, and it's actually working." So it was that, part of the stuff was about, if it wasn't about rules and regulations and you will do this, it was about ownership. It was about a collective ownership and understanding that we were all on that same waka, that we all wanted the society in the future to actually have more knowledge than those of us of my generation and the next generation didn't have. And as a result of that, there was ignorance. So owning it, when you own something and you're passionate about it and you believe in it, you get that extra fire in your belly to make it happen. And I think that's what's so it wasn't like you will do this come hell or high water. This is something that we all believe in, let's make it happen. So the realisation of a dream was that we all saw what we wanted in the future, and so worked together to create that change. How they implemented it was, again, I think an ownership of it, and so that they were invested in making it happen. And generally speaking, I think that there wasn't, I don't believe there was a lot of resistance to it. I think it was new for people, and it was challenging for people, but that's just Newton. People rise to those challenges, and those people are there because they know Newton's a place that does things differently, that's innovative, that is about social outcomes and social justice in the future. So those teachers are advocates of that too. And I think that they, a lot of the motivation was that they were learning so much that they didn't know, and that they saw that was about how you change the future. And so I think the degree to what of effort and time and energy that they put into planning, and the resources that they developed as a result, was phenomenal. I think that the depth of the documentation, the actual resource itself, enabled them. I think it was a lot of the stuff was already done, and the first stage of it was that in getting the document in the first place, they had to inform themselves and learn. And in any pedagogy, you have to have your background information, and you need to design how you're going to do that. And part of the resource itself was so thoroughly developed in terms of not only the overviews and the outlines, but the within the resource itself was all the information that people needed to know. But I think teachers took that further, and some of the unit plans and the technology that people used to work with their kids around the curriculum was quite phenomenal. So technology was also a big part of it. I think though that the document was an amazing foundation, so that they had not only the unit planning books, but they also had boxes of resources that were developed to go beside it. And a lot of people, though, they took that even further. So what happened as a result of the planning and all the programs and the units that people had developed, it went into a database. So everybody could have access to that. So it wasn't like, oh no, this is mine, I did this, therefore. It was there for all of us. And I guess that was like the same kind of, we knew that it was working at Newton. We could see it in the confidence of the teachers, and we could see it in what was coming out of the work of the students. You walk into classrooms and you see this phenomenal picture, this story of children's interpretations and understandings of this whole different perspective or perception or history. And so I think it actually, I don't think you can get past the whole thing about a learning community. The fact that we were all there, we owned it, we had a mission, we were going to do this and that. And then I think when it came up about taking it further and developing it further, that made sense, because it can't. It's just like what we're doing at Newton. The world needs to know about that. This country needs to know about that, because it's making a difference, and it's not just making a difference for the kids and the teachers that are there now. It is about the future and the well-being of Aotearoa in the future. So I see it as something that actually really pulled staff together. I see it as something that gave people. It was all about, really, and I don't like the word empowerment, but knowledge is power. And so this sense of confidence of actually knowing some truths, and not only that, but actually being able to articulate when you get into conversations with people that might have misconceptions or misunderstandings of the history, and through no fault of their own, because those are the stories that have been told right throughout the history of this nation, that this is what happened. When you go, actually, no, that's not. Historically, this says that, and so says that. So, it's based in a whole lot of stories, but it's got credibility because it's been very well researched, and it's truth, and you can't beat truth, and that gives you amazing sense of courage when you go into situations and people are actually talking about these truths that they've heard over the years, and then you can go, actually, that's incorrect. Have you ever thought of it from this perspective? So, it's plant seeds, and I think from those seeds, people are willing to go wider and wider and wider in their knowledge and in their understanding, and as a result in their willingness to engage with kids wherever they're from, about identities, cultures, histories, living together, the realisation of the tikanga iwi or social sciences curriculum in life, experiential learning, all of those things kids can bring to it. It's fascinating. It's wonderful. And teachers are passionate about it. And they know they're doing stuff that no other person has done before. And I go, that Star Trek, going places where no one's gone before, I think it's it. And it's so exciting. So, and the quality of what teachers do is just absolutely amazing, and the work of kids is incredibly well documented. I remember looking back to a lot of the talking that I do around the country with principal groups and in staff professional development across schools. I have a piece of writing work from a 5-year-old new entrant child at Newton Central School that is written bilingually, and it's talking about the relationships and connections she has with people, but also her sense of safety there. Now, kids feel safe when they know they're cared about, and when they're learning stuff that is, they're responding to that learning, and they see themselves in that learning, and what a powerful motivation for learning. It's quite phenomenal, because a lot of the coverage they're getting, there's stuff in there that I don't know. It's going right back to, the concept of being, the concept of being just as a space, without us in it. And, from dual perspectives, you've got the Māori, the Māori creation stories, where you go back to, the splitting of the earth and the division of the land and the seas arising and all of these kinds of things. And so, try and get the imagination for kids, this conjures up, and to have that kind of learning at that age level, you know, from 5 to 10 is phenomenal. I mean, a lot of us as adults and mature adults in our lives don't have that sort of knowledge and that sort of learning. And I guess it encourages, because it is so well, it kind of inspires creation. It, you know, inspires creativity, and enables kids to use their imaginations to look at what things might have been like and to relate that to now. I remember going into a total immersion unit, and they'd been doing some study about who the one of the royal families, you know, going way back, and these kids had written these in Maori, and they'd written these things about, it was about Bloody Mary, and they'd had all these things up, you know, called Bloody Mary tēnei, and they had these pictures, and they'd been exploring all this, and it was just so, like, okay, you know, you would think in a total immersion unit, you know, why the heck are kids learning about Bloody Mary? Well, you know, it is part of history, it is part of the context of this land, rather, not isolated as we will just study English monarchy. It was the reality in that the journey coming, like where we came to this land and what was going on at that time over there, because, you know, all of us now whakapapa back to Great Britain, well, and many other places, you know, but it is part of our whakapapa, and whakapapa being, you know, vital to Maori. So it just seemed so, you know, it's that whole thing about being bilingual and bicultural, I guess. And one of the things that I saw, the reality of the vitality of being bicultural, and it was nothing new, it was nothing unusual, or it was just normal, so that these kids are able to just, you know, take it in their stride. And, you know, I just think that the kids are the way that they express their understandings of things are quite phenomenal and really exciting and really happy. And also, like, I mean, I've seen, you know, some of the stories that the kids have done when they're at the year 6 levels about the transgressions and their studies around the Springboks tour, and about, you know, the around the home you know, around the Pacifica dawn raids, and, you know, their perspective, then critically analysing them from a social justice perspective, and saying, you know, asking why, and wanting to learn more information. And at the same time as that, those children that were learning about you know, those times and those events in our history could also link their own families there, which was quite phenomenal. And yes, so there is that history does belong to all of us. We might not have all played a part in it, but we have somebody within our whānau, within our community, within the whānau that actually was there at that time, and kids realise that, and that's the sense that they have of owning this. And it's not just about, it's more than just a teaching and learning program that's about let's learn about Africa today. Parents. Well, an interesting thing about Newton, when I interview parents, or parents come along to around pre-enrolment, and I usually spend about an hour or so with these people and take them right through the school, but I also sit down and I talk to them about Newton, about the things that we believe, and about the bicultural histories, and about the reo, and, you know, your child will come home and they will speak the reo, and they will teach you the reo, and they'll expect you to learn it as well. And I talk about the bicultural histories, and I talk about our commitment to, you know, that we want our children to be advocates for social justice in the future, and they are incredibly responsive to that. I also say, look, if you can't handle that, don't come. And I say, like, if you want normal, if you want usual in education, you can get it anywhere, but you can't get difference. And so that's what it is about Newton, is that difference. So, you know, trying to get people to understand, and I think this is what happens with the parents, because the kids go home and they talk to their parents and they share with their parents, and often parents will come in and say, oh, my kids came home and they were talking about this. That's amazing. I wish I'd had that when I was at school. So it was kind of, you know, so the parent community are learning alongside their children, and they are, the feedback that I get is that they really, really want their children to learn the truth, and they want them to be critical thinkers, and they want them to know, they want the kids to know who they are, and they want to be, they themselves want what they believe they never got in their education, which was a true understanding about the bicultural histories of this land. And so many go, like, God, I just didn't know that. And so through the learning that's happening in the classroom, and through the parents engaging with their kids in that learning, they're going through a process of understanding as well. And I think that's where the power is in it. So, you know, go right back, it becomes that whole thing about, you know, ownership and a sense of pride, and having the courage, I think. And that's you know, that's you can't understate that. You can't understate courage in terms of what happens at Newton, because all of the stuff that's happened there has been courageous. It's stepping outside of the box. It's doing stuff differently. I think we're a bit spoilt now at Newton, because we just what we do is so normal. It can't just stay at Newton. You know, the fruits of what we're doing has to permeate, and they have to go out into the wider context of Aotearoa, and it needs to be in every classroom, in every community. And you know, I think that one of the critical things about it is getting the community to want what it is that we've got, and to own what it is that we're doing, and to celebrate that and feel that sense of pride. And yes, I went to Newton, I was a part of that. You know, I had the courage, you know, firstly, I had the courage to put my child in a community that I knew that was doing things right outside the box, but I wanted that. And I'm so glad that I did that. And I hear that when I was just the other day, I was up at in Whangarei, and I'd gone across the road, and I was I'm sitting outside, and this woman came up to me and said, "Oh, Hoana," and I said, "Oh, yes," and I recognised her and wasn't sure, and she said, "Helen Finlayson," and this was someone who was at Newton Central School, and her daughter's now 21, and we talked about this knowledge that, and this sense of justice, and this sense of creativity and exploration that the kids get at Newton, and how critical that was in what she was doing now, and so much about it being really strong and clear about who she is and her place in this land, Aotearoa. And so that was really validating, and you get those snippets when you run into people and they tell you about what your kids are doing, or you read something about something that one of the kids at Newton has written that's got very powerful social justice messages in it, you know. And these are all kids, they're not just Māori, they're not just Pākehā, they're not just, you know, they are all kids right across the diverse communities of Newton. And they do things differently. And they believe in celebrating difference and diversity, and they have courage to take risks in their learning. And I think that's vital, and I think the parents do that too. But it's all about courage, and it's all about being part and owning and being a part of a learning community that's prepared to step out of the box and to innovate and celebrate and be really creative in learning journeys for kids. It's so linked to, you know, changing futures, and it's about changing lives and futures, and getting rid of misunderstandings that put divides between people, between cultures, between school and home, you know, between you know, the staff and parents, all of that sort of. It's building that really strong sense of community, ownership, and celebration of what we're doing, and you know, really acknowledging it's all about courage. The strength of this resource and the strength of this program and the knowledge and understanding that's happening is about changing lives and futures, and the only way we're going to get to be a truly bicultural and therefore multicultural and acknowledging of the diversity of this nation is for us to learn some things that we don't know anything about. And it's too easy to stay within a comfort zone, to stay with what we know, because that's how it's always been. The reality is that in education system in this country, there are so many things that don't work. And so there's all these kind of changes that happen. And, let's put more reading on it, let's put more maths on it, it doesn't work. So foundational stuff like language, culture and identity, and understanding your place, regardless of who you are, and your connection to this land through exploring the bicultural histories, is you get a sense of how could I put it? This land and being linked to this land, and we need to put truth in curriculum, not just from one perspective. Look, people don't know what they don't know, and it comes back to, if you've always thought something, you'll always think something until something comes along to challenge that thinking. And I think that's what the curriculum does, and it does it across a whole community. And it starts with the courage of the leader in the school, the leader to say, we need to do something differently. We need to understand, truly understand, and look outside of our own ways of seeing things, to having a look across how other people see things, and to actually being honest and truthful about the change that needs to happen. And what this is, it gives people a tool to implement all of those things that people don't know how to implement, like kahikatea, realising Māori potential, Māori learning as Māori. It covers all of those things. It enables teaching staff and schools to implement those things that are going to make a difference for everybody. Because if we do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always got. And that is that, what is the knowledge that's relevant to this land? It's a bit like, this is a resource, and this is a body of knowledge that belongs to this land. It is about the history of this land. It is incredibly relevant, and it can be contextualised within any community, within any part of the land here, and so anybody can do it. And for us to do what we need to do to foster harmony in this country is to validate people's worldviews, knowledge and experience, and to understand how we got to this place and what we need to do to get to the next place where we want to be in terms of a state of being. So that curriculum takes you from a state of being right from there. So I guess it's stages of being, but actually adding on bits that have been left out. There's no doubt about it that knowledge is power, and this resource could benefit every student in every classroom in every school in this country, and it can also do the same for every teacher, every principal, every board of trustees and every community, so that the knowledge enables people to make informed statements rather than misinformed, oppressive, alienating, judgmental, and the fact of it is like I said way before, if people believe what they've always believed, and nobody says actually there's another way of looking at that, change never happens. And when change doesn't happen, when you do the same, you get the same. And what happens for our kids in schools, they fall in the divide between the school culture, home and community culture, and that's not enabling maximising cultural capital regardless of who you are. So this is this resource is an opportunity to maximise cultural capital from every child in the classroom's perspective. And it has, it has the power to influence the thinking and behaviours of a whole of society for the future. So I think it's a very critical resource that needs to be snapped up, supported, encouraged, and celebrated in every school in this country.